everyone, I'm Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you today how to make a cute little bracelet out of our Rose Montee beads. And in addition to Rose Montees, we're going to be using some check beads, the SuperDuos, as well as 8 O's and 15 O's. For this, you're going to need, as far as material goes, you're going to need some wildfire beading thread. I'm using the 0.006, and you can use it in 0.008 as well. It'll still work with that. I'm also going to be using a thread zap to burn off my thread ends. And I have an English beading needle, size 10 preferably. You really only need one. I just have two sitting here just in case. Material-wise, as far as beads go, you're going to need about 20 Montees. And the Montees, like I said, they are a size 20 Montee, and you're going to use about 20 of them for a 7-inch wrist. So you may need a couple more, a couple less, depending on the size of your wrist. In addition to the Montees that run down the center, we're going to have an 8O run down the center as well. My 8O color for my center is going to be the matte green AB color here. And I'm going to use that to kind of play off my SuperDuo color. The SuperDuo color is the Aqua Picasso. And then both my other 8O and my 15O that's going to go on the sides of my SuperDuo is the matte metallic gray color in both of those. Other than my beads, I do have a clasp closure. This is a cup button. And the cup button I'm using is the Labrador vitriol, and it has a little bit of a rainbow color to it and silver on one side, so it's really going to play up nicely onto those bright colored cups of the Montees that give a nice shine to them. So we're going to get ready to get started on this fun little quick and easy bracelet. So I've got my beads laid out here, and the only bead that I don't have laid out is my green AB matte, because I'm not going to use that till the very end. What I am going to do is start with a stop bead. I'm just going to pick up one of my 8O beads, put it on my thread, and I have right about 5 feet of thread here. I'm going to leave about 10 inches of thread at the end so that way I can come back and attach my clasp. And I'm going to take my bead and go up through it. Eventually this bead will come off. I'm going to go up through that bead away from my tail 2 times. And that's going to stop my beads from falling off my thread. To get started in this, I'm going to be starting actually with a Montee, and the Montee is going to sit kind of to the side. So my Montee, when you're looking at it, again it has that little X formation in the back. I'm going to go through the back of that X formation with my needle, and then I'm going to let that drop the whole way down next to my stop bead. When I'm coming out the top of the Montee here, whenever you're at the top, you're going to add your 8O bead, and you're going to add one of your SuperDuos. Then you're going to add 3 of your 15 O's to make a little picot trim. You could also use 11 O's if you want. I'm pulling those the whole way down next to my Montee. And then what I'm going to do is run my needle and thread back down through my SuperDuo. So that way it makes that little picot trim. Once I'm below my SuperDuo, I'm going to grab another one of my 8O beads, and I'm also going to grab another Montee. So I have that Montee on and an 8O. That's going to be my first little section here. On the other side of my Montee, I'm going to connect the 2 Montees together by repeating that same pattern, which is going to repeat over and over. I'm going to put on one of my 8Os, one of my SuperDuos, and 3 of my 15Os. Let that drop down. I'm going to go back through my last SuperDuo that I just put on, so I get that little picot trim. Give it a nice and tight pull. So you can see when you're adding the 2 together right now, they're separated. Right now we're going to add them together so they are joined. To do that, you're just going to kind of push that stop bead out of the way. You're going to make sure that both of your crystals are facing up or facing down, either way, but they want to be in the same direction. So after my SuperDuo here, I'm going to add on another one of my 8Os, and then I'm going to go down through the first Montee with my needle going towards the first SuperDuo and 8O that I put on. So basically around in a circle. When I have this around in a circle then, that's going to pull it all in place. If your Montees flip, you want to make sure to flip them before you add any more. So there I have a little triangle or a little diamond shape. And what I'm going to do is I'm just kind of flipping it upside down so it's easier for me to sew through. I'm going to reinforce to get back over to this side here to add another Montee. I'm going to basically be reinforcing my whole first section of beads that I put on, going through my 8-0, going through my 15-0s, down my SuperDuo, down my 8-0, and through the Montee. So you're basically going around in a circle. When you're coming around and out of your Montee, we're going to get ready to add our next Montee and our next SuperDuo on. So right now the place looks really, really tight together. We're going to kind of stretch it apart to make it more of that diamond shape once we add more beads into the middle. So again, I'm going to put on one of my 8-0 beads, one of my SuperDuos, 3 of my 15s to create my picot trim. Let those drop down next to my last Montee that I put on. Go down through my SuperDuo. That's going to create that little picot trim with the 15s. When I'm coming out then, the bottom of my SuperDuo, an 8-0 seed bead goes on, as well as a Montee. Pull that all down together, and it's going to get that next Montee in place. On the other side, an 8-0 goes on, a SuperDuo, 3 15-0s to create my picot, once I'm there, I'm going to go back through my SuperDuo, pulling all my thread through here, put on another 8-0, and I'm going back through my last Montee. So not the one you just added, the one before, and that's going to kind of grip them together. And that makes everything sit nice and together. To get down here to start my next one, again I'm circling back around through all the beads that I put on. So I'm going back through my 8-0, back through my SuperDuo, and my 15s. As I'm doing this too, I'm pulling very tightly and giving a fair amount of tension. Sometimes the thread can get stuck on the Montees, so you just want to give it a yank and make sure that it's not stuck inside, so that way you don't get done your project and have some extra thread showing. And once you're coming down, again you're going down through the whole project, including the 8-0. And if you turn over here too, you can see where I'm coming out the back of the Montee. Whenever you're in the Montees, you know that you need to add, and how to kind of add a little bit to this and where to go is that there's going to be an X pattern that's formed on the sides of the Montees. You can see it also with the white here, that it's going to be the X pattern on the sides of the Montees. So once I'm coming out this Montee, again, another 8-0 goes on, another SuperDuo, 3 15s, back down my SuperDuo, 8-0 goes on, and I add another Montee. Once I have that there, 8-0 on, SuperDuo on, 3 15-0s, going back down my SuperDuo, and when I come out the SuperDuo, I'm going to grab one of my 8-0s here. I'm going to link it back to the last Montee. Again, I'm going to reinforce here, and I'm going to continue with the same pattern, adding along as I go to make it longer. So here I've had some more Montees on, so you can see it a little bit better as it's laying down. As I was saying, it kind of squishes up and it stretches out. We're going to kind of play up that stretch when we go into adding some beads down the center of it. But I'm continuing to add my Montees and my beads. And when I get to the end of my Montees, I'm just going to continue with my pattern. I always like to hold my project. I think it makes it faster and easier for me to work with. And it makes it quicker for me to pick up my beads and continue on my process. I'm continuing to add my design as I go. And create a longer bracelet. You could adapt this also for a choker necklace if you wanted to get it to be a necklace look. I'm just going to show here how I add on again. Flip that Montee in place. And I flip my project, so that's what I was saying. One of the reasons I hold it is because I flip my project constantly as I'm working on it to make it easier and more accessible, rather than me kind of bending my arms around in order to thread my needle. I always kind of keep my needle sewing in the same direction by turning my project. And once you have it started and you have that pattern, you're just going to continue to add on and get your Montee bracelet a little bit longer. So now that I'm done the length of my bracelet, and mine actually ended up only using 18 of the Montees because I have a little bit smaller of a wrist, so I only ended up using the 18 of them. I'm going to come out and I'm going to attach my cup button. To do that, I'm going to use one of my 8/0 seed beads, and then I'm going to use 3 15/0 seed beads. I'm going through the back of my cup button. Once I come out the front, I'm going to put on one of my SuperDuos just to decorate the cup button up a little bit. I'm going to go down through the other hole and down through the other side of the SuperDuo and come out the back. Once I come out the back here of the button, I'm going to repeat adding 3 of my 15/0s and one of my 8/0s. I'm then going to circle around and come back through the Montee, just like we came out of it. I'm going to reinforce this going back up through the whole clasp. Anytime you have a clasp, you want to make sure that you're reinforcing it and not just using one thread. The clasps are always the area where you're going to have the most tension. So you want to make sure to have at least a minimum 2 threads going through here. 3 would be an even better idea. And again, I'm going to come down through my Montee. Pull my wire nice and tight, and that'll get my cup button right in place. Once I'm out of my Montee, I'm going to get ready to add my beads down the center. To add the beads down the center, I'm going to basically skip over the side of the Montee. I'm going to go through the center hole because the Montees have that cross section and they have that center hole there. I'm going to take my needle and thread when it's coming out the side of a Montee and go down the Montee through the center hole. And the needle is going to come out then the other side. I'm going to just make sure you don't see a ton of that thread exposed, that it doesn't get hooked onto anything. You'll see a little bit exposed on the side, but not a ton, and it'll kind of be hidden up. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in the space between the Montees. You don't need to do this. You don't have to actually fill in the space between them. That's up to you. What you are going to do is kind of add a little bit more of a charm to it by filling that in. If you want to, you could use a 3mm bead, or in my case, I'm going to be using some of my 8/0s and my 15/0s. So I'm coming down the center. I'm going to be adding a 15/0, an 8/0, and a 15/0 onto my needle, and then I'm going to be sewing through my next Montee through the center hole. And when I pull that down, and those beads are just going to sit right nice and in the center. Again, I'm going to go through the center line, adding the Montee, or adding the 8/0s and the 15/0s as well, and down through the center line. So this part is really simple. You're just kind of adding some design in the middle. and it separates out that V a little bit. Like I said, you don't have to do this. You can, that's up to you. If you did use just a regular bead rather than a Montee that does not have that cross section in the back, you wouldn't do this because you wouldn't have the opportunity to. That's where the Montees are nice because they have that little cross section. After I come out each Montee, we just continue adding my 8/0 and my 15/0 going down the length of my project. So I've gone down the entire length of my bracelet, adding those 15/0s on either side of my turquoisey green AB bead. That way it matches. I'm going to push my stop bead out of the way here, and I'm going to make a loop on this side in order for my cup button to sit inside of. To do that, I'm going to start off with my 8/0, and because I'm coming out the center, I'm then going to go right into my 15/0s to make my loop. I'm going to use a collection of these 15/0s depending on which kind of clasp you're using. If I was attaching a toggle or anything like that on, at this point you would do the same thing. I'm going to attach all of these 15/0s to make my loop. If you prefer, you could use 11/0s, but this way I'm using all the materials that I needed for my project. I need my loop just to be a little bit bigger. I'm going to add a couple more 15/0s onto it. Also, if you wanted to, you could do a peyote loop. You can go back and kind of design this up. I'm just going to do a simple loop and reinforce it. So I have my loop made here. I'm going to go back through my beads there. So I'm going back through my 8/0 that I was coming out of. And that's going to make my loop for my cup button. What I'm going to do then to reinforce it and to get back up to the top is I'm actually going to go through my side bead, or through the side of the cup of the Montee. So I'm going to have a little bit of thread exposed right on the side. Once I'm to the side here, again I'm going to have a little bit of thread exposed, and I'm going to the top. I'm going to reinforce this whole loop. Again, anytime you're doing a clasp, you want to completely reinforce it so that you don't have just one thread going back through. And I'm reinforcing this whole thing going up through it. Once I come down the other side, then we'll kind of tie off the threads. So I'm coming down this other side. Out the bottom through the 8. There. And that has my loop then made for my cup button. The threads that are on the side then here, the needle that I'm working with, as well as my start thread, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get ready to tie those together and kind of decorate up this end a little bit. To decorate up the end a little bit and to make it a little bit nicer looking, we're going to take off that stop bead. I'm going to use some of my 15/0s. I'm going to use 4 of those. I'm going to go through the side of my Montee there. When I come out the top, I'm going to use 4 of those again. And this time I'm going to sew straight across and straight through those beads. Oh, I'm sorry, not straight across. What am I saying? Come on down through your project and out the base bottom. There we go. Make sure they're going and they're not getting attached to your loop here. And there we go. When I'm at the side here then, I'm going to grab these 2 threads, take the needle off, and I'm just going to tie a simple little knot. I'm going to do 2 simple knots and try to tuck them under and kind of hide them at the end, and then a little bit of glue. For now, what I'm going to do is just cut them off so that you can see the finished product. And here you have it, the Rose Montee, or the Montees here in the SuperDuos in the little diamond design with my cup button closure. It's a really nice, simple, easy, and it moves rather quickly for the size of it because you are using a bunch of the Montees and the SuperDuos, which take up a little bit more room. So thanks a lot for watching. Hopefully you get a chance to make one of these, whether or not you make it with Montees or another bead just going down in the V shape rather than down the middle. Have fun making it. If you get a chance, check out our Facebook page. You can also go to our website, PotomacBeads.com. Go to the locations page and check out the different stores near you. If you can't shop at one of the stores or can't take a class, you can always watch the rest of our YouTube videos and shop online at thebeadco.com. Thanks a lot for watching.